What do you do when you've tried everything? From birth control to spironolactone to visiting the Cleveland Clinic to working with a functional medicine doctor, and you're still stuck with acne, anxiety, gut issues, and 10 years of insomnia? Welcome to Libby's story. As a registered dietitian, health expert, and someone who's already poured a decade into searching for answers, my client Libby was still waking up at 1 to 3 a.m. every night, battling anxiety and dealing with skin breakouts she thought she'd never get rid of. But after just 1 week of following her customized health plan from the Better Belly Blueprint, everything started to change. How'd she do it? In this episode, you'll hear how Libby's insomnia disappeared in days after starting her first protocol, the shocking food triggers that were behind her acne, anxiety, and even skin conditions that doctors couldn't solve, why even with all her research, she still couldn't find relief until she ran the right tests, and how she went from discouraged and stuck to finally confident that full healing is possible. If you've been chasing answers for years and still feel like your body is a mystery, this episode is proof. Real healing can happen faster than you think. Are you ready to start your own journey? Join the Better Belly Blueprint today by going to betterbellytherapies.com/blueprint. And if you're ready to hear Libby's story, just keep listening in. We're about to get real. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly podcast. If you're currently trying endless supplements, doctor visits, and diet changes to heal your mystery symptoms, you are in the right place. We're here to solve the real root causes behind your gut, hormones, skin, sleep, and brain concerns. Literally anything and everything in your body. My name is Allison Jordan. I'm a functional medicine practitioner that has supported over 150 clients just like you to heal problems that no one has been able to fix. You don't need a perfect diet or a random supplement you found on Instagram to heal. You need a proven system that heals your whole body from the inside out. That's what I'm here to share with you, episode by episode. It's time to make health easy again. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. Okay, guys, I'm so excited today to have onto the podcast my friend, another former health expert, and a Better Belly Blueprint member, Libby. Libby, thank you so much for coming on to the Better Belly podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be back and to chat more about how helpful the Blueprint has been to me personally.
I mean, I was just telling Libby this before our listeners, like I forgot that you were already on our podcast and we have this awesome episode. I'm going to link it in the show notes. It's the hidden drivers behind anorexia. Anorexia was your topic of focus in your as you were becoming a registered dietitian at U of M, and you found out some like fascinating information. Anorexia and eating disorders is a lot of your specialty. And so if anybody has any interest in that, highly recommend that episode. It's episode 112 and it is linked in the show notes. We are not going to talk about that today, but I love having people like you on, Libby, because we have a lot of people who are either health professionals themselves or nurses or people who've basically just done extensive research and studying on how to heal their bodies or heal other people's bodies. And you still have really amazing experiences inside of this program. It's not basic information. I'll let you say that yourself. But like, I think that it speaks for itself that somebody who's already done a ton of studying wants to be in this program. So I'm so excited to get to chat. But before we talk about more of the, I don't know, sciencey or techie stuff, I would love for you to tell our listeners, before you started and joined the Better Belly Blueprint and started working with Better Belly Therapies, what was going on in your health? Give us an orientation, whatever you feel is relevant and as to like why you joined. What was going on?
Sure, totally. And I'll go back in time a little bit and kind of get everyone up to speed as far as my health journey goes. But going way back, kind of the first significant health symptom that I ever remember experiencing was back when I was in middle school, kind of out of nowhere to me. I started developing like really bad acne, not even on my face, but all over my chest, my back, and my shoulders. And that was really odd and bothersome. and felt really embarrassing. Like I never wanted to wear like a tank top, or I played basketball and would always wear a shirt under my jersey. And maybe this is more common in women than I realize, but I feel like when you think of like back, shoulder acne, like that's more of like a male thing typically. So I never knew what was causing that. And then it went away totally in high school, even just referencing our previous episode when I developed anorexia. I think just with my hormones being like totally offline, like that acne went away. But with the eating disorder, I developed a lot of like significant GI and hormonal issues because of that. And I had recovered pretty much completely from a weight standpoint and a relationship with food standpoint by the time I got to college, but still had a lot of like lingering gut hormonal symptoms. I, did the whole like traditional medicine route at first, and that was clearly quickly not going to work from my standpoint, just kind of being told like, oh, here, go on birth control, or here's a prescription for spironolactone. Like that was really frustrating to me, wanting those deeper answers as to like why I'm having the symptoms that I'm having. And this was
Yeah.
back, in like 2014, over 10 years ago. I did some work with a functional medicine practitioner in the Ann Arbor area that was like somewhat helpful. I went to the Cleveland Clinic for a bit a few years later. That was also like somewhat helpful. But again, like really seeking answers, felt like no one was really going as in depth as I needed or wanted, different symptoms still lingering. So then kind of time went on, and then things really started to take more of a nosedive a couple years ago. So one like significant thing that started happening was really bad insomnia. And I've struggled with sleep issues a lot of my life, and I've had a couple different periods that were like really bad, and this was one of them, if not the worst, where thinking about different things, but I don't fall asleep perfectly fine, but then I would wake up almost every night at like 1 to 3 a.m., wasn't able to fall back asleep. So obviously you can imagine just being that sleep deprived like day after day was pretty debilitating. And I think that was a main trigger, along with some gut stuff, as to why I ended up developing an autoimmune condition, which is so lovely to talk about because it's just awkward, but I'm going to be totally upfront about it. But it's called lichen sclerosis. And if you're not familiar with that, it's essentially a skin condition that causes your skin to be super itchy, and it's typically in like the vaginal area, so really uncomfortable. Typically, that was also waking me up in the middle of the night, and it was like impossible to go back to sleep because it was so itchy.
Right.
Um,
You're like, I'm already having
yeah, it was
sleep
awful.
issues. Oh, girl. I
Um,
don't think I knew all that.
yeah, it was so bad. And then just those were some of the biggest things. But on top of that, like my GI symptoms were getting worse, just feeling like bad gas, a mix of constipation when I would go to the bathroom, just looser stools, stomach pain, like all these things were clearly not right. And kind of, per my history, I had wanted to get a lot of help for a long time, but didn't know who to work with. Felt like finances were sort of a barrier, but then it was like, okay, clearly I really need to invest in this. And I knew from listening to your podcast and knowing you personally, like Allison is really going more in depth than anyone I've ever heard. Like I was so confident that
Hmm.
doing your program was the thing that was going to help, just from listening to your podcast and really jiving with the way that you describe things. Like this is a level of detail that is required. And I feel like if I do this and get all this testing, I was very confident that a lot of this would get resolved.
Wow. By the way, I remember when you joined because I remember seeing like a notification of a purchase, and then I like to look at the names, and as people's labs and stuff come through, like you guys are doing the work in the Better Belly Blueprint, at least, of like going through the program, but we get all the labs, and I look at them kind of be like, what are we dealing with? What are our
Mm-hmm.
clients dealing with? And I remember being like, I wonder what made Libby want to join now.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'd already known that like you'd worked on stuff in your health, and I didn't know all that. So, first off, oh, that sounds like it sucks. But I'm so glad we're literally on the testimonial call where
Yes,
like we
me
don't have to
too.
hang out there too long.
And I also just want to add one little, as far as timing goes,
Yeah.
I don't have kids, but I'd like to have kids at
Mm.
some point soonish. And just the awareness that I have with how important it is to be healthy physically as best you can going into a pregnancy, and how your own microbiome and vaginal microbiome like is so significant for your offspring, potential children. So I just felt like that was just essential to me at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, you were really feeling like it was clear in your head your why. Like, why am I going to do this
Hmm.
program? Like, I'm in pain. I also have like a long-term goal,
Hmm.
futuristically. Great. So that's where you were. That was an amazing overview. Um, and let's see. I mean, tell us what are your symptoms like now? And if it makes sense to you, like sprinkle in like how fast you saw results or but yeah, just catch us up. What's happened since you joined the Better Belly Blueprint?
Yes, definitely. So a few things come to mind that have really shifted. And one of the biggest things that happened, which so grateful for, was that immediately, pretty much immediately with the liver protocol, which makes total sense, my insomnia resolved. So that was amazing because that was just the worst thing ever. But from everything you've shared, knowing about how when you're waking up at that time, it's often such a huge sign of liver problems, makes total sense why that was a huge win. Just being able to like sleep through the night again was phenomenal. So that alone was worth everything. Um,
And that's so early. You
I
you can
know.
because that protocol releases even before you have your lab results.
Hmm.
So you're like already making tracks.
Yep. And then I mentioned the acne that I had really badly a long time ago. That was no longer a thing, but I would say ever since like I recovered from the eating disorder, all this and that, like I still would get a lot of acne just on my face, my jaw, and I would almost say I had like made peace with the frustration that this was just not going away. Like I always thought throughout my 20s, like, oh, clearly this will just resolve at some point. Like you don't see tons of like 30-plus-year-olds walking around with like all this acne, but no, that was like still a thing. And I hadn't even highlighted that at the start of the program as like a top symptom because I had so much other stuff going on and I just thought nothing was ever going to change that really. I didn't know what the problem was, but when I did the Zoomer test, and one of my main findings was that I'm really sensitive to all grains.
Mm,
And when I cut out grains, like I kid you not, like pretty much the next day, week, like my acne completely went away.
that's
So
amazing.
that was also absolutely amazing because again, I kind of just figured that was never going to, I mean, I knew something was causing it, but I could never figure out what it was. So that alone, again, has
It's a
been
pretty
life
big
changing.
category to
Yeah.
like be like, no one, a few people are like, I'm just going to cut out all grains. If you do, it's because you're like on a keto diet, but you think
Hmm.
like, or low carbing it or something, but you're associating any health benefits with like the carbs, not like a
Hmm.
specific category. I was the same way. Rice and corn threw me. I was not expecting that to be an
Hmm.
issue.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So liver protocol, you started sleeping, cut
Hmm.
out grains, your skin cleared up.
Hmm. And then another huge change that I wasn't expecting at all. I've struggled a lot, and I still do to some extent, but with just anxiety and obsessive thinking. Obviously makes sense with some of my health history, all of that. But the grains also really impacted that, which again makes sense to me more as I've learned. I read a really interesting book in the past year. I don't know if you've heard of it, Allison, but it's called Grain Brain. But
I've
it
heard of it. I
it
haven't
was
read it.
fascinating, absolutely
Yes.
fascinating. Just make and that really put a lot of connections together as far as like grains specifically. And I'm not saying grains for every person all the time, but if you're
Right.
sensitive on an individual level from an inflammatory standpoint, like how that has neurological implications. And I kid you not, like I've done so much therapy and like I'm not saying those things aren't valuable and important,
Yeah.
but from like an obsessive thinking standpoint, taking out the grains because they were causing me so much inflammation was just a huge difference. So that was also amazing.
Isn't that a blessing too that you had this experience? I only say this actually from my personal experience that you suddenly have this like weird 2020 effect where you look back and you're like, that wasn't even me. I wasn't
Yeah.
even fighting like that wasn't a character issue or a personality issue or like a I don't trust the Lord enough issue. This is like something was hijacking my brain and
Hmm.
I dealt with it and like all those coping skills you learn in counseling, at least I have this experience. I'm curious if you would if you feel similarly, but like all the counseling I got, I felt like it was still relevant. It was like, okay, still helpful if I started spiraling, but it was like having to push against like a force like 20% the size of like what I
Hmm.
had been dealing with. Does that resonate at all?
Hmm.
Like, I don't know if maybe you haven't had that moment, but has it been something that you felt at all, especially related to like the mental health component?
100%. Like I feel like before my brain very much felt like I don't know how to describe it. It's like just a really hard place to exist mentally, if that makes sense. And it
Yeah.
very much felt like the environment of my brain, not so much like, oh, I'm so bad at like having good thoughts or like that sort of thing. Like clearly things just feel off from like a biochemical standpoint. So I think to your point, it makes implementing things you might process or work on in therapy a lot easier when you're not like fighting inflammation and just deficiencies and that sort of thing so much.
But it feels so personal. Like it feels
Right.
like I'm the issue.
Hmm.
Taylor Swift, it's me. Hi.
Exactly.
You're like, no, it's the grains issue. Yay.
Exactly.
Okay, so anxiety is obsessive thinking. And the funny thing is like you and I knew each other when you were in college,
Hmm.
and we had conversations about stuff like this. And I know it was like something you were actively working on, and it's just crazy. Like it's stuff that I had dealt with in my health. It's crazy how like these are things we were like praying for.
Hmm. It is
And
crazy.
what was that? What is that? 2014, 2015, and it's
Hmm.
like 10 years later and something totally different has improved it.
Hmm.
And you weren't expecting it to. Um, just makes me so excited about the
Hmm.
possibilities of this work. And I'm so happy. That makes me excited for you too. Okay, what else? I know that
Hmm.
you submitted a nice form. Tell us what
Yes.
else
Um,
has changed.
so I think the other main thing that really comes to mind, so this was really surprising again, but I think just the whole Zoomer testing has been so enlightening and fascinating. But so I, for various reasons, wanting to get more access to more testing as a dietitian, got registered kind of on my own accord with Vibrant Wellness. And to summarize, my younger brother actually wanted to do like all 10 Zoomer tests to kind of see what foods he was reacting to from an inflammatory standpoint. So I was like, sure, I'll order
You
them
went
for you.
all in.
Yeah. And so I didn't necessarily think that was going to be like the best, most useful use of money to do like all those, but I was like, sure, kind of see what comes up. Like, here's what I found, but see what you find. That'll be interesting. And on his testing, he found he was super sensitive to nuts. So I was just curious, like, oh, I wonder if I'm super sensitive to nuts. And I was still having the lichen sclerosis itchiness issue still. And it was driving me crazy. Like I was, you know, using a journal to kind of note, like, am I eating different things in different days? Like, is anything changing? Like, I could find no correlations at all. And I was eating tons of nuts because I mean, I love nuts. And since I wasn't doing grains, like, I was eating so many nuts, like, all
Right.
the
It's
time.
right.
And I've always done like almond milk, and it was just so much nuts. So I was
Nuts
like, this would be
everywhere
good
all
to
the
know.
time.
Yeah. So, anyways, I did that, and it turns out I'm like very sensitive to nuts. So when like I kid you not, the day after I stopped eating all nuts, that issue went away, which was again a huge mind-blowing turnaround of like I think not that food is the problem because I was also dealing with like a parasite and
Yeah,
bacterium, but like we've been working on a lot in this
right.
program, which is great. But I think it's just been fascinating of like, oh, when we take out these foods that you are specifically reacting to, it can make a huge, huge difference. So that was
And
another huge one.
And I'm really glad, like we have historically not done nut testing because of the number of people who can at a significant level improve their health
Hmm.
without that testing. But we had a couple people you included. You might have even started it because you asked about it in the Facebook group, and a couple other people are like, "I want that testing."
Hmm.
So we did a really small batch of people like ordering that testing, which we don't normally do, and it's just a good reminder to me as a practitioner and of like, yes, there can be other things to look for that we're not testing in the blueprint that I'm usually focusing on like the biggest hitters.
Hmm.
But I just love that you do that. And I feel like it teaches me, or at least helps remind me, like, hey, Like there's other things going on. And
Mhm.
I just love that you advocated for yourself in that way too. And even your brother, like there's a certain amount where sometimes we don't know the answer to something until we test for it. And maybe
Mhm.
his Zoomer, 10 Zoomers would have come back super boring, but at least he knows. Like it wouldn't have been the test to tell him what he needed to do to get results. But sometimes you just gotta put that money down and go where your intuition is. So that is exciting. Do you hear me now?
Yes, sorry, I thought it froze for a sec.
That's okay. I didn't ask you a question, so that's the good news. We'll just have to cut this out of
Okay,
the
yeah, that's fine.
audio. Um, I just finished up a thing on nuts.
Mhm.
Okay. Did anything else improve when you removed the nuts? I'm really curious.
I had some hand eczema that, again, I didn't know what was causing that, and that also has gone away completely since I removed the nuts, which is another huge improvement.
I love it. Just so our listeners know, I'm going to put in the show notes our gut skin connection podcast
Mhm.
episode in case anyone's like, why would changing things in her gut help her skin? Or if you have skin issues, that's a great episode. And then also I'm linking our Zoomer episode where actually I have an episode with the company Vibrant Wellness that produces the Zoomer, and we talk about how that test is so much more superior
Mhm.
as a food sensitivity test to so many other things out there. So if anybody has done other food sensitivity tests, have you done other food sensitivity tests other than the Zoomer?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
And I
okay.
used to honestly be kind of like skeptical of all that, especially in the field that I work, like, oh, now I can't eat these 50 billion foods, but understanding the science and how, like shared on your podcast, how superior this test is. No, I'm like, no, that makes it totally makes sense.
Yeah, you were appropriately skeptical
Mhm.
and you saved yourself some money, and maybe
Yes.
some clients of yours by not having them do those other tests.
Mhm.
Okay, so lichen sclerosis has improved. What else? Anything else?
Those are definitely the biggest things I
Okay.
would say as well. I used to have like kind of bad gas, like that also, excuse me, pretty much went away with the food sensitivities, working on my parasites, the H. pylori, and then my bowel movements are doing better. But I think as I continue to improve my low stomach acid and all the things, I think that will like only get better over time.
Right. And yeah, as a disclaimer, you are not fully through all your protocols. I mean, I know listeners don't know all the protocols that you might be about to do, but how many months are you into the program? Or maybe like if you knew all the protocols that you are indicated to do based off of your testing, are you through like 50% of them,
Mhm.
80%? Just curious.
Yes. So I started my pathogen protocol. So with H. pylori, that was April. And I just finished, I've done H. pylori protocol, parasite protocol, and I just finished Candida, which is so exciting. So now I'm done with my pathogen protocols.
Yay.
Yay. And I'm moving on to copper toxicity, which I'm super pumped about because I think that's also a big player in my mental health. And then I have not yet burped with baking soda test for low stomach acid. So we're definitely working on that, which I think will just take a while.
Right, which is also, I mean, it basically complements the copper toxicity protocol because it's working on zinc.
Mhm.
And that honestly connects to that episode we made like
Mhm.
oh so long ago on the hidden connection under anorexia. So
Mhm.
definitely interesting. I don't know if I've looked at your HTMA. Part of me wants to go look now, but I'll look at it
Mhm.
later.
Mhm.
I love data and I
Yes.
love how like your experience, everybody's story is different, but what you have experienced really shows that everything that we do, it's peeling off layers. Rarely when someone's just got this glut of symptoms is they're like, oh, it's all just the parasite
Mhm.
or it's all just a food sensitivity. And if you'd done that, you might have gotten some relief through another program, but then been like, do I go do a parasite protocol again? Maybe it didn't work. That can be something people think if they still have symptoms. I'll just do that protocol again, or I'll reduce even more foods. But you know that you don't need to get hyper focused on one area.
Mhm.
You are like, okay, I dealt with that area. Now we're going to keep peeling off the layers, and you're
Mhm.
seeing those symptoms also fall off as you go.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been super encouraging as the months have gone on.
Awesome. Well, I love this so far. Let's see. You talked about what you had tried to help your symptoms, that Cleveland Clinic, functional medicine doc, a traditional medicine route. I didn't actually even know about Cleveland Clinic and the functional medicine doc in Ann Arbor either. So go us. Unfortunately, it's like more common than I realized that, or not, than it has happened more than I would ever imagine that we're helping people who have gone to these pretty prestigious places,
Mhm.
and we're helping them more than those places, which
Mhm.
is like super like humbling. and and it's also humbling even that like you know me as a person in real life.
Yes.
I'm not perfect, I'm not God, but
Mhm.
like I do try to be really detail
Mhm.
oriented. And so humbling to get to have this. Let's see, what other questions though have we maybe not hit? You might have already felt like you shared this, but I'm curious, what are some of the biggest things you've learned about your health and symptoms since working with us? Just things that you see differently or things that you feel like you understand yourself better on because of going through the Better Belly Blueprint.
I think just the really big thing was, at least for me, like how big of a picture my specific food sensitivities were as it relates to my symptoms. Like I wasn't necessarily expecting that. And I mean, I think heading into the program, I kind of was of the mind of like, oh, I had already been gluten free and kind of figured that was a big problem for most people or a lot of people. Or my mom has history of Graves' disease, so I figured, oh, I probably shouldn't be eating gluten or dairy. But other than that, I feel like I felt like my diet like wasn't necessarily like the problem, so to speak. Like it's
Your
very
tummy
full
didn't
of.
hurt when you ate food.
Right. And it's, I eat mostly non-processed foods and it's all nice and colorful and like all the things, but really, again, gaining that understanding of like, okay, they could be perfectly healthy foods, or the person next to you might eat them and have no problems and they're absolutely amazing, but how individualized it really is. And I think it's, not only changed my view of my own health journey, and I even think like going back to middle school, like it was probably all the corn and greens that I was eating that was really flaring up my acne then. So it's given me some more compassion and perspective on all of that. And then even professionally, kind
Mm.
of changing some of my thoughts as far as like, yes, food can be a huge problem in like the sense that we're talking about, but also there's, as you often talk about, like so much else going on too, those layers of the onion that we need to be addressing holistically.
Yeah. And you, in your background, like your specialty is going to be helping people probably adjust their diet if it's overwhelming or find ways to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like I think that I love sending people to our registered dietitians or like you when they're like, oh, the diet component just feels really hard. Like now they
Hmm.
have the list, but they don't know what to do with it.
Hmm.
And so you already have those skills, but just to say, like, there's different components of specialties that can help us make this process possible or doable.
Hmm.
Um, the last question I love to ask people before or at the end of a testimonial episode is if you could share one thing to encourage a woman listening to this podcast right now regarding her health, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing I would share is just that if you're dealing with any sort of chronic health symptoms that are really bothering you and that you haven't been able to resolve, like there is so much healing that can be had. And I think it all comes down to like, are you getting, the right testing to get that clarity on like what's really going on? And I feel like the 5 foundational labs that you run like really do tend to cover that. And then, do you have that specific protocols that you need to really get that healing? Because I think when you have a clear plan that's as detail oriented as what you provide in your program, I think there's so much healing to be had. And if there are still lingering symptoms, like that just means we need to dig deeper. That's what was driving me nuts for so long was like, I so believed my body could heal. I just didn't know like the information or like what's driving this. And I couldn't find that anywhere. But I think there's so much healing to be had. We just often might need to dig deeper or like a little more underneath the surface, and relief can be found that way.
Oh, I love it. Amen. And if anyone's listening to that and they're like, oh my goodness, I want to do what Libby did, or I want to work with Allison, you can go and find that information in one of two places. You can go to betterbellytherapies.com/blueprint. You're going to learn all about our program, the Better Belly Blueprint, which is exactly what Libby did. Or you can go to betterbellytherapies.com/VIP and you'll learn about our upgraded version where we do all the work for you. So there's two different ways to work with us, which is our DIY course that Libby did with a group coaching optional add-on where you can get your questions answered. You can get support in live biweekly group coaching calls and daily inside of our private Facebook group. Or again, you can have us do all the work for you. And you can learn about both of those programs, one at betterbellytherapies.com/blueprint and betterbellytherapies.com/VIP. Those links will be in the show notes. But thank you so much, Libby, for coming on and sharing your story partway through. Maybe we'll get to have you on in a couple of months again when you're more through things. It'd be so fun to kind of hear how things are going. But thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening, you can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of, and you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.